Aloha. How is everybody today? It's Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. I am Kim Ann Curtin, the Wall Street Coach. I try to do live coaching once to two times a week, at least once, but usually twice a week. I do this as service to the trading community. I try on Tuesdays to open up the cameras so that the person who wants some coaching can come in. So I do request that if you come in, you have the ability to be on camera for the traders who are listening and watching us. Yeah, it feels like it's been a while. I think it was just last week that I was here. But ultimately, these are, usually so much juicier when a trader comes in. So if there's anybody right now that's here who is ready to come in, let me know. Hello, Liz. It's good to have you here. First one in the chat box. It's good to have you. So, what are we going to talk about today? Today, we're going to talk, believe it or not, about your hormones, because one of the things I'm very excited to launch this week is a opportunity for traders to get their lab work done at a very, very discount rate. So I want to speak about that, but ultimately, I'm going to be taking any trader that wants to come in for coaching. So if anybody's already here that wants to come in for live coaching, come on in. Just raise your hand that you want some coaching, and then I'll give you the link. Hi, Tina. It's good to have you here. So today we're going to talk a little bit about your health, guys, because that has a huge impact on your ability to focus as a trader. And also it has a huge impact on your not just your cognitive ability, but also your emotional stability. That is the part that I feel a lot of traders don't pay really any attention to, because when you are having losses repeatedly, you are definitely going to find your cortisol levels are spiking. And even when you have great trades and you have green days, multiple ones back to back, it's possible as well. What happens then is that your testosterone levels are going to increase and start to have you believe that you are master of the universe. And this is why we have bubbles. This is why things pop, because what occurs across the entire globe is a pandemic, but of hormones, and a pandemic of an extreme, panic or an extreme inflated confidence. These are both happening because they are physiologically happening inside of traders. And this doesn't matter if you're in the basement of your mom's house and you're trading, or at a hedge fund. The physiology is the same. And what I ultimately want you guys to think about is, when was the last time you even did a checkup on these biomarkers? Men are more impacted by the testosterone levels when it comes to their trading, but women are also impacted by their testosterone levels. And a woman's testosterone levels, if it's too low, can have a big domino effect on other parts, not to mention sleep. But all of these things are like a cobweb. And I want you guys to start to think of yourselves like an Olympian. Nobody here would expect, any of the Olympians we saw just a couple of weeks back, eating McDonald's, maybe drinking right before meet, or not having proper sleep, because we know that they need all of those things in alignment for their ability to do their best when they went to compete. The same is true for you guys. I don't see traders prioritizing sleep, prioritizing nutrition, prioritizing what their levels even are. And that's why now I've been searching truly for 12 years how I would be able to offer this to traders. And very fortunately, I found an organization, thanks to an introduction, that is doing a great job and is charging such a low amount that it's a no-brainer. We're going to launch this on Friday, so stay tuned. If you aren't signed up for Curtain Call, then I'm going to request right now you do get signed up for Curtain Call. I'm going to give you guys the link right here so that you guys can sign up, because ultimately you want to be on my mailing list for this launch. And I want you guys to see what's involved and the value that you're going to get out of it. When did this start? For me, this realization that our biomarkers could influence and impact a trader, it happened when I read this book by John Coates 12 years ago. It's called The Hour Between Dog and Wolf. And the subtitle, it's so telling, is Risk-Taking Gut Feelings and the Biology of Boom and Bust. That is the heart of what you guys got to realize. Whatever you are looking at when you are at your trading desk is influenced, just like putting on a pair of glasses, by the biology you guys have within yourself. And so the other thing that started this whole journey for me was that in this book, and I have 2 studies, which I've talked about with you guys before here in these settings, there are studies where he went to a London trading floor. So who is John Coates? John Coates used to be a trader for Goldman Sachs. I think he worked at a couple other places too. But he was so fascinated at watching his colleagues and himself be hijacked by, this kind of like I can do no wrong, having incredible risk, inappropriately so, or watching them completely be panic stricken when they didn't need to be. He was so fascinated by that he wound up becoming a neuroscientist, right? And then, of course, he went back to do some studies. And the study that he speaks to in his book that I remember to this day when I read it, he was able to predict the profitability of traders based, and these were all male traders, let me say this, based on their testosterone levels that morning. That morning, those numbers, he could determine whether they were going to be profitable or not. And they were accurate. That is the power of understanding what your markers are. Hello, BTO. Glad to have you here. The key is that I want you guys to start to get clear that these biomarkers are, in a sense, in control of you. And if they are, for whatever reason, compromised, you want to know that. Now, this is obviously going to have a huge impact over your entire life, but start with where it's going to hurt the most, and that is with your trading. He also talked about how when we have certain levels in our physiology compromised or underperforming, so to speak, at optimal levels, we also, not only can we be irrationally negative, we actually can become even more believing in conspiracy theories. So I have thought all the spikes that we've seen online with people buying conspiracy theories, falling into the rabbit hole of believing all these conspiracy theories, I believe it's because of the cortisol levels, because our nutrition is so bad collectively as a society, at least in the United States, that I believe part of the reason we are watching more people get sucked into conspiracies, it's because their cortisol levels are off kilter. So the impact your levels have on what you're looking at as a trader is huge. And it could be that some of the places you guys feel stuck is actually due to what these levels are inside of you physiologically. And that's why I'm so excited to offer this package with a lab who is going to be able to put you with a health coach, get clear on any medicines or supplements you take, and then they're going to be doing the most robust blood lab workup on you that I have ever seen and ever had done myself. So let me say this: 11 years ago, when I moved to Hawaii, I found a homeopath that was checking my blood levels like nobody had ever done before. She was looking for things no standard Western, doctor that I went to see every year ever checked. So much so that the bill I would get from the lab was in addition to what my insurance cost, right? So I still pay every time I've done that with her, roughly $250 more than what insurance covers because she checks that many biomarkers. Now that I'm working with this new organization, they are checking even more. They're checking over 80 biomarkers, guys. So even the doctor that I've used, who is doing way more than the average doctor out there, she's not even doing many as this organization is doing. That is how incredible this blood lab work is. And for what we're going to get, the value of this would be if we did it privately, because insurance doesn't cover these markers, it would cost something like $3,500. So they are doing the most robust overview that I've ever seen done before. And things that are showing up for me are lucky for me because of my levels. I'm very healthy. I have really good numbers, but my hormones, thanks to them, can be dialed in. Those didn't show up. I just did my blood lab with my original doctor back in July, beginning of July. Everything was great. She's always so complimentary to me. Like, you're so fortunate. You're so, doing the right things by way of what these markers are. But this is so much more granular than what I'm doing now with this organization, with this lab company, that they're able to see the granular details of my hormones. And I'm going to be taking supplements to tweak them because even a little change is going to have repercussions on my anxiety levels, on my stress levels, on my sleep ability. All of these things will get improved just by having a tweak to the dial of the supplements that I'm taking. So I am so fortunate to find this out because now I have an opportunity to do something about it. Whereas if I just had gotten based on the more plain Jane version, I would not have had that opportunity. So I'm going to pause there. If anybody has any questions about this, just put your comments in the chat. Some people have reached out to ask me for those 2 John Coates studies, which I have sent to them. What else did I want to say? Oh, and John Coates, I'm hoping to have him back on my podcast. I've wanted him on since I read The Hour Between Dog and Wolf. I would strongly recommend, if you haven't read this as a trader, you have to. It is so powerful because it's going to show you how much more trading is a physiological game. And of course, you have to do your hard work, you have to do pattern recognition, but all of those, think about it, guys. If you're having to really have excellent memory and you're having to have recognition of patterns and you're having to multitask all day long as a trader, don't you think if your cognitive ability is as sharp as possible, that's going to give you an edge? You know it's going to. So, anyway, enough about that. I got on my soapbox, but I am so, and I also, let me say this last thing. I have worked with some of the top traders in the world. The first thing you can ask almost all of them, the first thing that I said to any trader that comes in the door here is, when did you last have your lab work done? When did you check? Even before I had the ability to offer it to people, I was like, if you guys don't get these numbers, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're swimming upstream. Little tweak to supplements, adrenal support, especially if you have a lot going on in your life, can make a huge difference. All right. BTO says, love Bella's podcast and how he points out how much work has to be done. I thought his interview was so killer good. He had a hurricane. There was a late start to our podcast. There was a hurricane in Florida that day, as everybody now knows. So he was trying to get out of there. So we only had him for like 25 minutes. But boy, talk about a powerful 25 minutes. That is the podcast interview. But BTO, be sure you listen, because he also gave us another 25 minutes on X. We did an X space together, and that too is profound. He drops so much wisdom in that podcast. And if you guys haven't seen it, then please go to thewallstreetcoach.com. You'll see the podcast blog. And on that blog, you'll be able to see the first half of that. It's a 2-part interview I did with him. The first part is on camera, which is the podcast. And then he and I hopped over to X and did an X space where we got some excellent questions from traders who were just asking really good questions. Either they'd come on the X space themselves to talk to him, or they sent a DM, or they sent a tweet out there, and then I was able to read it to him. But he is so emphatic about traders who are starting out on their journey, or those who are just a couple of years in, that they really start to appreciate how hard it is to trade. He feels so many of them don't realize what they're getting themselves into, think it's going to be easy. And as he says in the podcast in the X space, if he is watching his elite traders, the Hall of Famers, so to speak, struggle, they're geniuses and they're struggling, and then doesn't it make sense you might struggle too? Like, he's just trying to kind of like have you guys put your expectations in reality, because there are traders who I find, at least online, have really unreasonable expectations on themselves for their trading, and that is setting you up for so much cost, and I don't want to see that happen. So watch the podcast with Mike Bellafiore, and also, if you guys can, I strongly recommend his book as well, One Good Trade. That book is it's 300 pages, but it's a quick read. His storytelling is excellent. He talks about the traders that work at SMB. He talks about the ones that didn't make it at SMB. He outlines all the pluses that a good trader is going to do and incorporate, and yet they're quirky characters. Each trader he outlines in that book are different than the other one, but they have things in common, even though they're very different. They each have their own personalities. They each have their own style. They each have their own strategy. They still have in common some qualities, some work ethic approaches that are absolutely gold for any of you traders who are feeling like you're a little bit isolated. The other thing he talks about too in the conversation is the importance of having a tribe, the importance of having people to hold you accountable. He talks about these three excellent traders right now that work for him that just killed it. But part of it was they each had their own specialty, their own focus, their own ability to look at different opportunities unique to them. And because each of them had their own kind of slant, together they really have become unstoppable. And they are able to kind of work with talking to each other and bouncing ideas off each other. Each of them is holding the other ones in check. It was a threesome. And those three are able to kind of understand the way each of the other one looks at things. I'm so glad, Tina, that you thought it was an excellent podcast. Thank you for watching it and for commenting. And if you guys aren't subscribed to my podcast, please do subscribe. You can go to iTunes, you can go to Spotify if you just want to listen to the podcast. The Wall Street Coach is that podcast, but you can also subscribe to YouTube. And if you guys are, fans of the work that I do, I'm going to make a huge request if you would please go to iTunes and write a review. I haven't had a review on iTunes for over a year. And believe it or not, having testimonials on iTunes actually helps the algorithm. It puts my podcast out in front of a lot more people. And for some reason, we're having an issue with iTunes because I have a couple of colleagues who've said they've done it recently and it's still not showing. So if anybody here likes what I have to say, then I would welcome some either a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast, or at a minimum, if you guys would subscribe to the podcast that we have. What we're doing now, thanks to my amazing editor, is he is going back over the last couple of years, all the X spaces that I've done, which were, kind of standalone X spaces. Some we put at the end of the podcast, but some were just straight up, X spaces, and he's going to kind of rejigger those, and we're going to start releasing those on iTunes, Spotify, wherever the podcast is playing beyond those platforms. So I'm excited to have that content out there because I have had conversations with incredible traders and investors, people who are speaking some really golden gems that I know are valuable for you guys. And I want you guys to have access to those. And I know it's hard to find old spaces on somebody's handle. I have myself struggled to find, wait a minute, there was that space I did with Steve Eisman. Where is it? But it's from like a year ago. So I have to go scrolling through. But once our amazing editor is able to kind of have all this data in one place, then we're going to start to release it so that there's some new content for you guys if you never heard those X spaces, which some of them are over 2 or 3 years old. All right. Anybody want to come in for live coaching? I'm going to take the code and I'm going to put it here inside the chat box. Remember, if you do come in, my request is you come in on camera. All right, I'm going to open up X and I'm going to put that link in there too, so that you guys can come in. There was a couple other things I wanted to be sure to say today, so let me just put this here. Let's see. Once. Okay, I think this is good. Busy morning. All right. What else? Oh, I haven't put this up yet, but I'm going to be putting it up. I'll be doing a live X space tomorrow with Danielle Shea. If you aren't following Danielle Shea, I strongly recommend you do. Danielle is on X under, I'll give you guys her handle. Hold on one second. I am pretty sure. Yep, there she is. Trader Danielle is her handle. So she and I will be coming in at, let's see here. What time are we doing that tomorrow? So I'm doing a two-part interview with her. And that interview is going to be first a podcast. So she and I come together at 5:30. So the X space will be at about 6:05, 6:10, something like that. I would definitely check her out. Watch she has a YouTube channel as well. She's on CNBC all the time. First of all, for the ladies, I think it's really great for you women to listen to women traders because women do have statistically shown they are better at trading than men. And I do believe that is because our testosterone levels are different. But here's why I want to advocate you men listen to her too. There are times where women traders speak to or identify things that you may not have heard before. Men and women, the most simple, basic thing I could say, are different. Women see through a lens very different than the lens men look at things from. So, the key of becoming a successful trader is perspective, guys. You want to increase your perspective. You want to have the ability to see things differently. And if you are very much caught and locked up in seeing what and how your strategy works, all that can do is open up opportunities that you previously perhaps did not see. And what I want you guys to realize is that the more curiosity you guys have, the better. It is when you come from a place of feeling like you already know everything there is to know that you potentially cut yourself off, first of all, from market shifts. Second, you get yourself to a place of feeling certain. Certain is, I think, one of the most dangerous feelings and experiences a trader can have. Do you want to be confident? Yes, but you never want to be 100% certain because it's too impractical to think that the market, which is informed all by other human beings. Yes, I got this algorithmic trading, but you guys got to realize those algorithms are still going to be coded by humans. We have not become so AI centric that now there is no human involved. So I want you to think about how many times do you become convinced or 100% sure of yourself instead of having any ambiguity. And that is part of what I think is a strength as a trader. Just like Mike talked about in that podcast, you have to be always looking for ways to shave and shave and shave even the most minor places so that you can get your skills honed even deeper. All right. Benito says, I don't know the stats, but Curly from our pro team is one of our most consistent traders, a true trader. She just celebrated crossing 1 million in profits yesterday. We love our female traders. Benito, that is such excellent, excellent news. Curly, congratulations. I am thrilled to hear that. And a go, girl, is all I can say. I know that we are physiologically built differently than men. And there is a reason that there are certain things that don't get triggered in women traders. And the key here is, guys, is it possible whether it's listening to a woman trader and her expertise. And I'd love for an intro to Curly, Benito, if you're willing to. Maybe she'll come on the podcast. I'd love for her to speak to her crossing that $1 million in profits. I think our listeners would love to hear her story and about her journey. But here's the thing: this is even something Pradeep Bande said. He spoke about how that man is an incredible trader, right? You could see him getting to the level he's at and just being like, I got it going on. He speaks in my podcast interview with him that he had one of his subscribers in his room speak to how he traded. And do you know what happened? He was like, wow, he saw something I never saw before. And I'm going to take that. And he incorporated it into his trading account. So here you have somebody who is at a very high level of trading, learning from a guy that's paying to be in his room. That is humility. That is a person who doesn't dabble in being too certain. So ask yourself, are you coming from a place of feeling too certain about what you're doing? And if you are, then you have closed your mind down. You are not looking at the big picture. You are not in a place of being flexible and open-minded. And that is going to undoubtedly cost you. And I don't want to see that happen. So, do we have any volunteers? You guys, I don't know, whatever platform you guys are listening to, you're going to see it different than me. But over all the different platforms from Facebook, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Instagram, we have 113 people here. It would be so tragic if nobody came into the room today. So hopefully somebody's going to come in, volunteer for some trading. And if you do come in, then I'm going to ask that you have your camera on. So is anybody wanting some live coaching today? Bueller? Anyone? I don't get it, guys. I don't get why I have to shake it all down to get a volunteer in the room. It is so strange. And that's the other thing. As a trader, you have to ask yourself, what is up with you not asking for help? I put a tweet out the other day about how important it is to ask for help, to get encouragement, to ask other traders if they could have your back in some way, or to, just commiserate with somebody. One of the traders who responded to that said, especially for men, he said, I can say that I have been discouraged for asking for help. I have been told that I have to do everything myself, Kim. And what I want to say is that is what is present right now, guys, whether you know it or not. Over 116 people across all the platforms are listening right now, and yet nobody is raising their hand to come in for live coaching. That is telling you that somewhere there's discomfort with getting help, and you have to be really curious about what that's about, because I can promise you that discomfort is in your way. It's in your trading successes way. So Benito says, must shed the ego and step up, guys. Take responsibility for your success and receive all the help you can. 100%, Benito. Well said. And BTO says, I'm at work, or I'm at work, would love to join. So BTO, are you saying you can join, or you're saying because you're at work, you can't join? If you can join, just use that link that I put up above. I'll put up another one to just make it easier for everybody. But just think about, guys, what is going on that would have you not come in to do this live coaching, just think about like, wow, what is that I'm being afraid, uncomfortable, embarrassed, fill in the blank to not come in for some free coaching. You got to realize, guys, if you aren't 100% in, just in general with your trading, how do you think that can go? Okay, Liz, good. Come on in. You want to think about that, guys, because if there is any hesitation in you improving yourself as a trader, then you've got to ask yourself, what is that about? Because it isn't just showing up in this one area, it is showing up all over your trading. BTO says not able to, but how would we approach this if we don't know what questions to ask in order to help ourselves? If we don't know where to start? BTO, great question. Excellent, excellent inquiry. So the first question I would say you want to ask yourself is, what is the place that you seem stuck in your trading? Is it that you are doing this kind of behavior? Is it that you're doing that kind of behavior? Are you finding yourself making the same mistakes over and over again? You remember, guys, the better you can become as a trader is completely dependent on you being able to be self-aware. So I would ask you, are you self-aware? Ask yourself that. Do you know what triggers you in your trading account? Do you know what happens to you when you have a green day? Do you show up differently with your family, with your friends, with your relationship to yourself? What happens when you have a red day? Do you beat yourself up? Are you grumpy to everybody around you? Do you find yourself being depressed for a couple of days afterwards? These are basic self-awareness, noticing what impacts you, noticing what hijacked you in the middle of your trading day. This is just basic noticing. How do you react versus respond? If you are reacting all the time, then you will be hopefully at least noticing, oh, yeah, this triggers me, Kim. What happens in your day to day life? Forget your trading. Do you get really pissed off and slip into road rage when somebody cuts you off on the highway or the road? Do you get ticked off when you're behind somebody who's driving too slow? When you forget the bread at the supermarket and that was the one thing you went for, do you criticize yourself, abuse yourself, speak to yourself cruelly? You can look and become self-aware about how you operate in multitude of places in your life, not to mention in how you show up in your trading. These are the questions, guys, you have to ask yourself. This is the inquiry I want you guys to be doing, because if you can get to the bottom of why is it so hard for you to cut your losses, take something as simple as that. Well, it's because I can't be wrong. Okay, if you can't be wrong, you have to get very curious about what could be informing that. Because as long as you're a human being, guess what? You are going to make mistakes. How are you, Liz?
Hey, how's it going, Kim?
It's going great. It's going great.
Trying to fix
What
this.
do you want coaching on today? I'm glad you're here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I would like to speak to something that actually came up a few of your sessions ago. Stephanie
Okay.
had spoken to the lone wolf issue about how, and you're speaking about it right now, about how we kind of put it all on ourselves.
Yeah.
I've been trading for, I guess, about 5 years now,
Okay.
and I've gone into different I've had different mentors and different groups that I've been a part of, but I've never really been a part of any of them. I've always just kind of been an outsider. I've been from the outside looking in. In the beginning, it was like, I was ready, but I just didn't know how. And even to this day, I still feel the same way. It's like I'm going going through different levels in my trading experience, in my different career, and there come times where I think, oh, I'd like to ask this question or that, but then I feel like, oh, but I guess for me, I feel like I can't give enough detail for somebody to really answer my question. So then I think I limit myself, like on really asking somebody for the time, And so there have been times where I've finally reached out. I mean, you're one of the people that I've reached out to, but
Good.
to tell you the truth, it's been probably the most. I think with everybody, I kind of give my, my introduction, and most actually every time it's been just a really short answer, short response. I don't really like the chat rooms, especially during the trading day, because to me it's distracting, and it just moves too quick. A lot of times, I'm a member of Investors Underground, so a lot of times the the stocks that they're trading, or the ones that are the most mentioned in there, aren't really what I'm doing. So it's just distracting to what I do.
So
I
let's
don't.
pause. Let's pause because you've mentioned a couple of things. So let's just go back to this construct of feeling like if you ask a question, it potentially doesn't include all the information you actually ideally could speak to.
Mhm.
But how did you get to find out what those critical pieces are that are missing unless you put it out there and have somebody respond? Hey, so what's this? And what's that? And what's this? Now you'll be forced to actually bring it forward.
Mhm.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, so I can appreciate in the middle of a trading day, the chat room is very busy. So you don't have to in the middle of that trading day. But as soon as the market closes, you can we just did it Investors Underground. I do the room with Sam every month. And one of the gals, Kat, did you see that last conversation from last? Kat is a brand new trader who was inside the room.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And she said the same thing. She feels
Right.
uncomfortable. She feels intimidated. And did you see the welcome that was poured down upon her in that conversation?
Right. Yeah.
So how about as soon as market close, you go into that chat room and say, hey guys, I'm new. I'm still figuring things out. I have a couple of questions that might seem simplistic, but I still want to ask them.
Mhm.
What comes up for you at the idea of that? And Britt, I see you in the room. You're in the green room. When we finish here with Liz, I'll bring you in just so you have a heads up. But you do have to have a camera on, Britt, for me to bring you on. And I don't see your camera being on, just as a heads up. All right. So what happens for you, Liz, at the idea of doing that?
I guess it would just have to wait until the next time I have something, because it's
right now. The idea of it. What do you feel right now?
Apprehension.
So I want you, if you're willing to, close your eyes, and I want you to tune into where is the apprehension in your body.
I guess in the previous experiences that I've had, I don't receive the.
So Liz, I'm going to interrupt. You're in your head.
Okay.
So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a metaphoric elevator from your head
Okay.
into your body. I don't want to know what you felt in the past. I want you to feel as soon as this call ends, you have to go into IU and put this in the lounge questions. What physically gets triggered at the idea of that right this moment?
Fear
Where is the fear in your body?
in my chest.
So would you be willing to put your hand there? And I want you to turn up the volume of the physicality of that fear in your chest.
Okay.
So just let it be even louder, even more distinct. Okay, were you able to do that?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what that space physically feels like, keeping your eyes closed.
It feels like a big monster crawling up and pulling down on my shoulders.
Good noticing. Good noticing. So if you're willing to stay there, I know it's uncomfortable, but I'd like you to just stay there for a little bit longer. You're going to just sit with it and let it do its crawling. You're just feeling and noticing yourself feeling simultaneously. Is there a texture or quality to it?
It's constricting.
Yes, good noticing. Now, your physiology is going to be responding to this. Is your heart beating quicker? Are you sweating? Anything physiologically happening as you sit with this constriction?
No, I just feel my core tighter and my posture is more contracted.
Yep. Go ahead.
I just said my back hurts.
Your back hurts, yeah. So is this a physical feeling, all the feelings, including your back, is this physical feelings that you are familiar with, have had before?
Yes.
Is it possible that this contraction is something you've felt for years?
All my life.
All your life. So can you recall the first time you felt it?
It was around 3rd grade.
So how old is that roughly?
Maybe like 10 years old, I guess.
Yeah.
4th grade.
Yeah. So I want, if you can, to just stay in this feeling. You're doing great. And I want you to just see almost like you would be walking around inside this contraction. What would you see inside your body in this chest area? Maybe it's moved.
It's like being trapped.
Yeah. What does it look like inside that trap?
If I'm looking from the outside, it's like being trapped inside of a small box.
Yeah, I want you to let yourself, if you can, go into the box. Because the tension, contractions in your body. So be in your body, noticing this box. What is the box like?
Stuffy.
Mm-hmm.
Musty.
Mm-hmm. What else? You're doing great.
Dark. It's
Dark. Hot.
Red.
Yeah, good noticing. Is it damp or dry?
Dry.
Can your arms touch the sides if you spread them out?
No, I can't spread them out.
That's how tight it is. Yeah. So just keep noticing. What's it like to be in that box?
Feels like shit.
Yeah. So see if there's any chance that 10-year-old version of you, is she in there with you right now?
No.
See if she can be summoned.
She's tiny and I'm on top of her.
Yep. So I want you to connect with her with words or with just a sense. See how she's doing in this space.
Get out.
She wants to get out?
I'm telling her to get out.
Well, she and you are in it together now, so she's not going to do anything or go anywhere without you. So just notice, what is it like for her in this box?
She's scared and confused.
Mm-hmm. What does she want or need from you?
Approval?
Are you able to give it to her?
Yeah.
What else does she need?
Love?
Are you able to give it to her?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do what you need to do to make sure she is getting what she needs from you, and then see if you can collaborate with her on what the next steps might be.
I want to hold her hand.
Good. Do it. See if she's agreeable.
She is.
Good. So communicate with each other about whether or not you're going to stay in this or you want to depart. Is there an option to depart? Is there a door or a window or a way to leave?
I know the way, but she's needing to convince me to not to be scared.
So you're both supporting each other. So see if between the two of you, you feel like you can take the step towards leaving, but you don't want to rush anything. And if you're both not ready or one of you's not ready, it's okay. What's happening now, Liz?
We're walking. We're getting out together.
Terrific. What do you notice about where you're walking to?
The walls aren't. You can't see a wall anymore. There's just like an open space. It's lit.
Mm-hmm. How is she doing?
I think she's checking on me.
How are you doing?
I'm feeling looser.
Okay, good. So I want you to do what you can to communicate to her that now that you guys have reconnected, you will keep in touch with her. See if she understands that.
She does.
Good. So let her know that you're going to have to come back to this conversation, to work, to the rest of your day, but that you'll revisit her soon. See how that goes.
Fuck that. I'm not going back to work. Just kidding.
Yep. So you can open your eyes, but you got that across to her, right? That you'll come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So this exercise that you just did is in support of your being with the discomfort that's inside your body, right? We all have these fears. We all have these contractions based on things that happened to us sometimes many years ago. So what you did, which was very courageous, is you let yourself stay with the feeling instead of leapfrogging out of it. So you did deep work just now. I'd like you to be willing to give yourself a little spaciousness for the rest of the day and to be prepared that there could be more emotions that come up later today. And if you're able to, let them. I wouldn't do any kind of booze tonight or weed or any of those things that help us numb. Let the feelings feel welcome to come if they come, because whenever we feel apprehension or fear, it is telling us that there is some hard to be with emotion we have yet to let ourselves be with. And today, what you did is you taught yourself, you kind of started to rewire your brain that even when you have anxiety or nervousness, you have what it takes to surf it all the way through. So good work.
Thanks, Kim.
There's more to do, but we're going to stop there. But I'm going to invite you to now, just for whatever's left with the day, go gently for yourself. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Good work. Good work, Liz.
Thank you, Kim. I
Okay.
appreciate your time.
You're so welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, have
I
a good day.
appreciate you, sweetheart. Talk soon. All right. So, Britt, I'm going to let you in a minute, but I just want to talk that through for everybody here for a second. So, that technique is called emotional non-resistance. That's what I call it. There's a lot of different names for it. It's called somatic work. Raphael Kushner talks about it. He calls it emotional connection. Dr. Peter Levine talks about it, and he calls it, basically somatic processing. What that exercise does is it begins to allow us to be with the places where we have resistance. Because whenever we have hard to be with emotions like fear, like anxiety, like self criticism, all of these are absolutely in our body feelings that we haven't yet allowed ourselves to move through. And that practice is so life changing when we bring to it a place where we feel stuck, a place where we feel like, oh, I just can't do that because it makes me too uncomfortable. So, if you want to learn more about that practice, I strongly recommend you either get my book, Transforming Wall Street, where I have a whole chapter dedicated to it. And I have those from the finance world, traders and investors, talking about that practice and how it's helped serve them. And everybody can do this in their own way with their own practice. It helps to have somebody walk you through it, obviously, but you can learn how to do it yourself. And this practice, just so you guys are clear, is the practice that hands down helped me process through my trauma. I don't know where I would have been without that practice. So, Britt, I don't see you there anymore. I was just going to let you in the room, but maybe you had to go. That went a little longer than expected, but hopefully, Britt, you'll come in next Tuesday. Just remember, Britt, you do need to have a camera on for the visits to the live coaching. All right, but that was so great to get to do that technique with you, Liz. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being courageous enough to come in and do that practice. And like I said, there's more to it than what we did today, but that was so brave. And it was clearly something new for Liz to practice, and to do something new like that in this forum takes a lot of guts. Thank you, Anthony, for acknowledging her. Anthony says Liz is awesome, brave, and sounds like she and I share some core characteristics. Lone wolf, go it alone, not always active in online chats. Hope she keeps reaching out. Would enjoy to chat with her. That sounds awesome, Anthony. And it's good to know that those are some of your characteristics. So maybe one day we'll get you inside this room and give you that same practice if you want to try it. I think that is a common denominator among a lot of traders. I think that's part of what the appeal is to people who are lone wolves, who like to go it alone. You can trade in isolation, although I don't advise it. It is definitely, undoubtedly, a big component as to who it draws to its shores. Are people who want to do it on their own, who don't have to be constantly mingling with a bunch of people. You can easily stay isolated as a trader, but I don't know that that is in your best interest. And furthermore, if there is resistance and discomfort and fear, or a sense of not feeling like, your question is valid in a chat room or in a place where there's a lot of activity, that has more to do with the relationship you have with yourself than necessarily the relationship you have with other people. I think a lot of times it can look like, oh, well, I'm just shy. But sometimes it isn't about shyness. It's about not wanting to look foolish. It's about not wanting to look like you don't understand something. Think about that, guys. You don't fully understand trading. I mean, I would be saying it will be hard. You will be hard pressed to find even a trader who's traded for 30 years would ever say he understands everything. Even Stephen Cohen, I don't think Stephen Cohen would ever say, I understand everything, because there's just too much data for you to understand. So you got to ask yourself, what could that be about? Me feeling like I have to be perfect. What could that be about that I don't allow myself to be out there and receive support, receive help? What could that be about? You don't have to know the answer, but I would strongly encourage and recommend you ask the question. And one of my favorite poems is one from Rilke, and he says, we are here to live the questions. You have to live the questions. And it's so easy when you do start to live from the place of living the questions, you wind up living yourself right into the answer. So here is that quote. I'm going to read it to you guys because it's such a powerful, powerful quote. And I think it's so applicable to what every trader is going through. Here it is. Be patient towards all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves like locked rooms and books that are now written in a foreign tongue. Do not seek the answers which cannot be given you, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without ever noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. I think that is just such a great quote, and one that traders have to remember over and over again, because ultimately your trading journey is about questions. The more you get comfortable with asking those questions of yourself, of your temperament, of your triggers, of what the market's doing, of what your colleagues are doing, the better. And if you start to see the journey that you're on as a hero's adventure, then you can see asking questions is what's going to up level you. Here is my hero's journey map, which if you don't have, I strongly recommend you get a copy of it. here is the sign up sheet for that. I'm going to put that here in the message box. And we have another person. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, Meng, how you doing?
Hi, Ken. Long time no see. Aloha.
Long time no see. It's so good to have you here. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
How can I coach you today? You give me permission to coach you, I presume.
Absolutely.
Okay. And we repurpose these on social, so you give me permission for that too.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Please, what do you want coaching on?
Yeah, I think one thing that I definitely need, and in fact had a conversation with Benito earlier today about this, is kind of managing one's ego, right? Like the desire to be kind of the hero complex of riding in to save the day, especially where in some of our life experiences, maybe we're the kind of call it the fixer, whether it's between family or
Yes.
professional life, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And there's this notion of I can fix it if I just work harder, right? But in terms of managing risk, that's not how that works. So yeah, how do we kind of talk ourselves down from the okay, this is already a loss situation, and we should exit. Yeah.
Yeah, such a powerful question, and such I want to just acknowledge your self-awareness at noticing that tendency elsewhere in your life is influencing you as a trader. That is half the battle, dude. That is half the battle. So good job you that you're putting that two and two together. You're like, "Oh, I did this in my life. It probably really, serves you to do that in your life. Now, not so much, right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, have you ever identified what your attachment style is? Have you ever heard of that concept, having an attachment style?
I have not. Yeah.
Okay. So, in our childhood, infancy, in fact, we over time develop an attachment style that either becomes kind of fiercely independent or becomes one that feels like we have to take care of our parents or our parent.
Oh, kind of. Would it be accurate, or at least on the right track, to say understanding of kind of almost as a default kind of self-identification? So like, what do I identify myself as in terms of like an archetype or a type of role, right? So the
It
hero firefighter in this
Right, right. It's
specific
different.
example.
It's different than that in the
Okay.
sense that it will identify for us how we relate to people. It
Hmm.
does sort of give us a label of sorts, but it also allows us to take a look at our relationship to feeling like we have to step into the fixing role. So, part of what I'm going to recommend for you, Meng, is to first sit with this construct. And this is like possibly not going to give you the instant fix. But I feel like your self awareness is so robust that would you be willing to consider at the end of every trading day, you specifically review the trades you took from
Hmm.
that energy of fixing?
Yeah, yeah. That that's a really good call out and a great
Okay.
practice recommendation. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Because it's understandable that you want it to just stop, right? But
Hmm.
none of us can stop on a dime. I liken ourselves to sort of like a cruise ship, right? You
Mm-mm-mm.
got a huge cruise ship. You can't just make a sharp left. Like, so you gotta start that ship turning very slowly.
Unless you hit the iceberg, right? Which is what we are trying to avoid here. Great metaphor, by the way. This metaphor works great.
But if you do have to make a sharp left to avoid that iceberg, there are consequences. The people probably on the tail of that cruise ship, they're going over. But you save the rest of the boat, right? So, but that's what I want you to think about. Okay, if this is a habit, if this is a tendency to do this, now here's the part that's very tricky. It's possible you have judgment about yourself doing that. Would that be correct?
Yes, very much so. And I think, I was actually talking with Benito about this earlier today, which is sort of that guilt shame cycle that all of us, I think, or majority of us would end up sinking into, right? Where it's we do something that we quote unquote should not have, and then it becomes like a self-identifying uh, action, and then we kind of affix our self-worth to some of those actions.
Totally.
In fact, I think we're live, so not going to use the exact words I used
That's
earlier
okay.
today, but to kind of at the end of our call, I actually said, I'm actually trying to reconcile the fact that just because I'm not the beep does not mean I am beep, right? So and one of the traps that I consistently fall into myself is that sort of need for, um, I would say, subconsciously using success in trading and often identified by profits rather than the successful execution of a system or strategy, into like mapping that against the self-worth, because
Yeah,
it's not
totally. Totally.
necessarily, uh, you know in this case it's definitely not my source of income, but
Mhm. Yeah.
at the same time, just like say poker with friends, it's more about the victory versus the P&L. But unfortunately, of course, in reality with trading, it's not about the victory, it's about the P&L, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
kind of the other way around. Yeah.
But this is also, if we have a attachment style that is not secure, right? There's all we each of us have, to some degree, a level of a secure attachment style. But if we have other attachment styles due to the nature of the caretaking we had when we were infants, we are going to possibly be having a tendency to collapse our worthiness, our self esteem with what we produce,
Mm,
with what we accomplish.
yeah.
So it isn't our fault that we might have those two collapsed, but it is our responsibility to begin to heal that
Mm,
tendency to have our learn how to separate our worthiness from
mm,
our output.
yeah. And by the way, I saw you posted a link, the Trading Hero journey, in the chat. I'm going to go on a limb and assume that's Joseph Campbell, Hero with a Thousand Faces theme.
It
Oh, okay. I'm a
is.
huge Joseph Campbell fan,
Oh,
so
you're gonna
um,
love it. So it's
excellent.
Joseph Campbell's map. And what I
Oh,
did
wow.
is I tried to take his map and
Hmm.
identify what I see is happening for traders that align with each of those spots on his outline.
Hmm. Amazing. Okay. Well, I'll download this after our chat. So.
So, Meng, if we're going to take the hero's journey as the metaphor for this conversation, what I want to say is that you are hearing the knock on the door.
Yes, or I would say that I have crossed the threshold, as I've already started the journey and have fought. In this case, the dragon is the gremlins within, right?
Right.
And have fought them many times, and suffered many setbacks. And at the same time, it is I'm at a point where I'm actually comfortable with sometimes losing those battles, and saying like it's okay. It does not mean that you're you know as you said earlier, it does not mean you're unworthy. It just means that you just need to train and practice more, right? You just need to practice more.
But just remember too that the
Yeah.
hero's journey, we're constantly repeating that
Mm,
journey. We
yes.
can do that journey 100 times in a day, never
Hmm.
mind thousands or millions in a lifetime. So it's possible that you have crossed that threshold, but now there's another journey that awaits you. And that is the one that is going to ask you to begin to surrender what your self identity associates with in
Mm,
regards to your trading.
yes. Yes. Okay. Well, I very much look forward to looking at the map.
I look forward to it too. But
Yeah.
here's what I want to suggest though. You
Hmm.
keep your trading journal
Yeah.
specific to what trades did you take that indicate you coming from the place of caretaking or fixing or problem solving.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I'm sorry,
It's
not
okay.
to interrupt, but the exercise to focus on those trades, it's true to essentially. I I wanted to use the word confront, but it's more just being matter of fact and facing that.
Neutrally.
Right,
Neutrally
neutrally
is the word.
accepting that they exist and that this is something that I need to work on
Yeah.
without passing judgment, without
Right.
passing.
It's
Yeah.
hard, especially if you're coming from a place of your self-identity being collapsed with having to be right or performing well.
Right.
So notice, oh, look at that. It looks like I took that trade and it was informed by me trying to fix. And isn't it fascinating? I have all this judgment about myself.
Mm,
What an idiot, or whatever the self-talk is. Just notice that's what that Taming Your Gremlin. Have you read the Taming Your Gremlin book?
I have not, but now it is going on the backlog, so I
I think you should get it. I think you should get it
yeah.
because
Let me add it
one
to
of
the
the
backlog.
catchphrases Rick Carson teaches all of us, which I am practicing this too all the time, is simply notice.
Yeah.
Just notice. Oh, there I am making myself wrong, calling myself a jerk again. Simply notice. And that alone pops you out of the judgment and potentially allows you to start to look with clarity at the places where in your trading you're trying to fix.
Right. Yeah. And I think one aspect that, having the TT community has been just completely illuminating and really helpful is that listening to a lot of the pros verbalize and kind of showing that vulnerability, and sometimes they're like, oh man, what did I do that? Like, oh, that was dumb, and so on and so forth. And it's like, wow,
Human.
so even the best make
Yes.
quote unquote mistakes,
Yes.
or and as you said, the hero's journey is a cycle, right? And then
Yeah.
we're continuously refining. And I feel like just as with trading, it's like any strategy, there's a quote unquote percentage of profitability, right? Like what's your
Mhm.
expectancy and so on and so forth. In trading as a practice as well, it's similar where someone who is very seasoned and very adept at it may have a higher rate of you know doing the correct action or being able to control the or tame the gremlins, but it does not mean they have a 100% batting average, right? It's like the
Well,
yeah.
men, because every trader, including Steve Cohen, is human.
Mm,
There's no trader that is turning into a non-human. So
right.
fallibility stays with us till we are 6 feet under. So if you're 6 feet above ground, you're going to be imperfect. The
Yep.
key is how comfortable can you be with your humanity, your fallibility.
Mm, yep. Makes sense. Yeah.
The other thing I would recommend is you go do the assessment on your attachment style, because even just being aware of what your attachment style is going to help you better understand yourself. So I'm going to give you Diane Poole Heller. She is a one of my former therapists. She's not available to work with people individually anymore, but
Mm,
her attachment style assessment, which is free, is the best one out there. She is the world leading expert on attachment style. I can't say enough about how powerful her work and her book is. It is truly liberating. My life changed dramatically after my work with her, because I have secure attachment style, but I had anxious attachment style,
mm,
disorganized attachment style, and I needed to heal these, and I was able to, thanks to the work that I did with her. So I'm going to put this up on Twitter now for you guys to figure out. And this is a big part of stuff that when I work with people, traders, I specifically say, find out your attachment style, because
mm,
it is absolutely impacting how you trade, because it can't but inform how you see everything that comes at you or everything that doesn't show up for you. Christine, I see your question. I'm going to answer that in 1 second. So find your attachment style, start to track where and what do the trades look like that are informed by fixing or troubleshooting. And then simply notice how often you go into
mm.
the self-judgment. And I would say the Taming Your Gremlin book is the first step towards you being able to notice how often does the microphone get hijacked in your head.
Yeah, right. It does it does feel sometimes like the movie Inside Out, right? Where it's like wait, who's grabbing the control? Like
Exactly.
who's grabbing the lever there, right?
But I'm
And
so glad you saw that movie. Did you see the second part yet?
no, I've not seen the
Go
sequel yet.
watch
But
it.
yeah, very much looking forward to it.
It's
And
so helpful. It helps all of us better
definitely.
understand. We think we're in control. No, those little Pixar characters are in control.
That's right. Yeah.
But
And
we can mitigate their control simply by noticing. I love that you said
mm,
that. Oh, who's in control now? Which one
yeah.
is? That's the question, because that allows for a little bit of distance between you and rage, you and sadness, you and joy. We
Mm,
get to see not just that we are having these feelings, but we can always step into observer mode, even of ourselves. Yes, we have to feel, but we can observe ourself feeling. That is power.
mm, yeah. To quote the Oracle of Delphi, know thyself, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And even as you start to journal these places where you take a trade because you're trying to fix,
Mm,
now you're going to notice it so much more often.
yeah.
And then notice the judgment happens to come right afterwards. Isn't that fascinating?
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's my favorite phrase. How fascinating. I learned that from Ben Zander. He is the former conductor of the Boston Philharmonic. He wrote a
Mm,
book with his wife called The Art of Possibility, and he uses that phrase all the time because it's such a neutral phrase. How fascinating. I love it. It's like a scientist perspective, being an observer. Oh, look at that. It really triggered me. How fascinating.
Mm. All right, adding that to the backlog as well.
Good to
Excellent.
have you here.
Thank
Good
you,
to
Kim.
have you here, man. Please
Great
stay
to be
in
here.
touch. Come back. Let me know how this unfolds, okay?
I will. Thank you so
Okay,
much,
good.
Kim. Yep.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming
Yep.
in. Okay. All right. So Christina has some questions. BTO, give me a minute here because she asked these about 20 minutes ago. All right. So Christina's saying, Kim, have you read Brett Steenbarger's books? If so, are there key items you agree or disagree with? And she says, I can't come in for coaching as we drive down the road. That's okay. I very much appreciate your honest commentary. Good. So, Christine, I've read only Steenbarger's The Daily Trading Coach. It's been a while. I probably read that maybe 12 years ago as well. I don't remember anything specific that I disagreed with that was dramatic. But if there's anything in there that you have noticed that you suspect is different than what I talk about, come to me specifically and then we can hash it out. The only thing I could imagine that I might advocate that not him specifically, but any other coach might not advocate as much as I do is this concept of being with the heart to be with feelings. But I could be wrong. I think part of what we see is that somatic work, somatic healing has really kind of become a pronounced part of the healing journey than it ever was before. Coaches that have been out there for a long time, there was possibly a different perspective 30 years ago than maybe just what we've seen in the last 5 to 10. I only now am really starting to see this emphasis on being with the heart to be with feelings physiologically. And that is work that I had to do for my own healing journey. And I did a lot of that work. I've worked, let me say this, guys. I asked for my first therapist at 10 years old. I have worked with more coaches, more therapists, more. I've worked with shamans. I've done shamanistic encounters where I also went to shamanistic training school. Like I have done things, I've done things in other countries because I have been on a quest for healing my own wounds, my own trauma. I had a very, very challenging childhood and I wanted to heal from that. So I have been seeking out obscure approaches my whole life because I was so interested in being able to heal. Now, lucky for me, all the things that I've done served my healing journey. But are there some things that I did that I would never do again? Yes. And are there some things that perhaps would not be things I'd recommend to you guys? Yes. But the one that undoubtedly stands out that I know transformed a lot of it being just theory into me being able to take action was the somatic healing work. And I don't know to this day if I see enough advocacy of that, but I've been swimming in that landscape for 18 years now, right? More than that, 20. That was when a lot of my big shifts, healing my own stuff happened was when I got exposed to the somatic work. And the first book that I read, I will strongly recommend to everybody, is Waking the Tiger. And that is by Peter Levine. I'm going to just grab it off my shelf here. This book was a game changer for me, guys. Waking the Tiger, Healing Trauma. And this is by Dr. Peter Levine, who's out there now. I see him more often than not on Instagram. But very few, in my experience, coaches know about his work. And I think that's a disservice to themselves in their own healing journey, never mind to those who are looking for healing from trauma. I infrequently meet people who have not had trauma. And trauma is not like, oh, things just were a little bit annoying. It's deeper than that. But understanding trauma, healing trauma is what, in my experience, somatic work can have the most impact on. So, okay. So BTO says, Kim, how can we notice all this? But once you have gone on tilt, and he thought, is the key to not go on tilt or do look, we all go on tilt, BTO. You're not going to avoid tilt. The key is to just simply notice, oh, you've been so triggered that your whole system now is hijacked by whatever the emotion is. I would agree. It is better to start to become an observer of yourself and your emotions so that you don't go on tilt. But you've got to realize you're going to still get on tilt, because unless you do a lot of work on yourself, do I still go on tilt? Of course I do. Does it happen as frequently as it once did? No. There is now at least a little separation between me and the complete hijacking. I can at least now witness myself. Ooh, you are super triggered, Kim. Oh my God. Okay, I have to breathe. I have to start to get the feet back under me, because I am completely being taken for a ride with my emotions. That is that little bit of light that comes between you and the trigger. Simply notice, I'm on tilt. That is how you begin to separate yourself from being completely engulfed by the tsunami of emotions. It just starts with noticing. And over time, if you get better at recognizing what triggers you have, then you can begin to heal them. All right. I put the trauma solutions link. If any of you want to find out your attachment style, that's what I recommended to Meng. I recommend that to everybody. It is very helpful to know your attachment style, especially not just as a trader. And in fact, guys, I forgot to tell this to Meng. Go to my YouTube channel and go, I guess it's on all the podcast channels. Watch my conversation with Allison Halquest. She is an attachment style therapist expert. She worked with Diane Poole-Heller, and I had Allison come on to talk about attachment style specifically for traders over a year ago. So, Meng, if you can go watch that, do. If you just put in Allison Halquest, you're going to see her come up. Allison Halquest. I'm going to put this here on my chat box on the Wall Street Coach podcast. So strongly recommend you listen to that conversation. It's very powerful at just understanding how our attachment style for traders specifically can inform, how you work and dance with the market. Never mind relationships, guys. Our attachment style, once that gets set, it doesn't mean it can't be healed, but we have to at least know what that attachment style is, which everybody has. So Allison Halquist on the Wall Street Coach podcast, I don't have the link handy to that, but I should get that link. And Meng, if you're still listening, strongly recommend you watch that conversation after you take your attachment style. And Diane Poole-Heller, she has a book specifically about attachment style. I recommend that too. You guys know I read a lot, so I can't help but talk about books, because all these books have healed me, helped me understand myself, helped me understand like my every human's coping techniques. You got to see that, guys. Anything you're doing that's costing you now, that's costing you in your trading, you got to realize that that served you once. It kept you safe once. It helped you cope once. But what served you then now is costing you. So don't have so much judgment about these things, because ultimately they simply were coping mechanisms for way back in your childhood, and you just did the best you could with what you had then. The challenge is that most of us, we don't get the memo that these very techniques and default settings that saved our ass when we were kids now don't serve us anymore. And we can easily keep doing the same old, even though it's costing us. It's costing your trading. It's costing your relationships, your personality. So, anywho, all right, I gotta go because I got a client call not that long from now. I hope this was helpful for everybody today. Thank you so much to Liz, to Meng for coming into the room. Thank you, BTO, for your great questions. Thank you, Christina, for your great questions. Anthony, thank you for support. To Liz, she's awesome. And I appreciate you being here too, Benito. And just thank you to everybody. You guys are doing great. Remember, try to be kind to yourself. And hopefully I'll see you guys on the X Space tomorrow, which I believe is about 6:05 p.m. Eastern. And then, of course, I'll do on Thursday a live X Space of more coaching. So if you didn't get to ask your question today or come in for live coaching and you have to gird your loins to have the courage for Thursday, start preparing.